Hey, welcome back to our study called Two Nations. We're looking at Genesis chapter 25. Today we're looking at verses 27 through 34, which is kind of just finishing up this little section of the chapter here. And in this last section we have just a short story about the boys, the twins, Jacob and Esau. Now they're growing up and they have really become two very different men. And yet very similar because they're both sinners. Both of them in this passage are painted as men who are after what they want. And neither is in the right. We know the story, but what do we learn about these young men here? What do we need to learn about these two guys? First, let's take a look at Esau. Esau is a materialist. Just like we have lots of those around today. He is a materialist. We're told in verse 27 that he is a skillful hunter and that he spent his time in the fields. That's what he did. We'll learn later that Isaac loved Esau. Why? Which is I always thought about this. It's kind of it's not a good thing to say about Isaac, but it says that he loved Esau because of the game that he caught. That's not the best reason to love someone, is it? I don't think so. But that's what it says. Isaac had his favorite Esau because Esau would go out and kill animals, and Isaac had a taste for good meat. So it's kind of a sad telling, but that's why Isaac preferred Esau over Jacob. Not a good idea. We'll see that happening. We'll see why and how that plays out later on, but that's what it says. But Esau is a materialist. He is only concerned about the here and now. The story tells us that he was out in the field hunting, and he came back starving. He's so hungry and demands a bowl of soup from Jacob. This is where the red part comes in, because apparently the lentil soup that Jacob made was red. So it's a reddish colored soup. So Esau is named Edom because he's red and because he's selling his birthright for red soup. But we see here what view of the birthright, the leadership of the family that Esau had. He traded it away for what he needed right then. Right? So he's the oldest. He is the firstborn. So everything would go to him. The inheritance, he would get double portion. Normally that's how it worked. He would be the leader of the family. He'd be the one directing where it's going, just like Abraham, just like Isaac. He would be the one who was, really in charge of this small town that they had because they were so wealthy and they had all these servants and all these animals. It's really just a small town that they're traveling with. And so Esau was, by birthright, the leader of that. What does he do? He's hungry one day after hunting and says, I'll sell that. All of that leadership and guidance and the spiritual leadership of the family, and I'll trade all that away because I'm hungry for some soup. That is a materialist. He's only thinking about the here and now. He's not thinking spiritually. He's not thinking what God has promised. He's not thinking about God at all, and he just does what he wants to do, just thinking about himself. So that's Esau, thinking about himself, thinking about his own pleasure, thinking about what his own needs are, and just willing to trade away his birthright, really almost on a drop of a hat. Now, is he going to die from it? It would have been better for him to die of starvation, really, than to give away his birthright. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, that's Esau. But we get to Jacob here, too. We see Jacob in the story, right? Jacob's like, hey, I got some soup. You want it? Give me your birthright. Jacob is a conniver. Right? Jacob was a different man, but no less a sinner here. First, let me correct a misconception here. The picture that Jacob was some kind of effeminate mama's boy, that only hung out in the tents. He had this milky, smooth skin. He's kind of frou-frou, effeminate kind of guy. That's kind of how that's how I've seen him pictured as. And some people describe him that way. You ever looked at any of the little children's Bibles, picture book things? That's how they paint Jacob as like this, mama's boy, and Esau's this manly, oh, I'm gonna go out and kill some animals, and Jacob's like, oh, I want to stay at home. That's usually how he's painted. Now, Jacob, it says, was a mild or quiet man who dwelt in tents. But who else does that describe? Abraham, right? Describes Isaac. Though they were mild, quiet men who dwelt in tents. So it's just really just describing who Abraham and Isaac were. They were not men in the field. They weren't hunters. They didn't spend all their time running around trying to hunt down animals. No, they were men in the field, men of business, men of flocks and herds. That's what they did. They were men of the field, but not in the way that Esau was. They had domesticated animals. They raised them. They traded them. That was their currency. To say that Esau was a manly man and then Jacob was a sissy is not true. It's more like Esau was a guy who rejected his family's way of life in the leadership role, while Jacob, on the other hand, really was all about his selfish ambition and wanted to gain the leadership role of the family through whatever means necessary. Even as we'll see in the next story, Jacob is so about himself as well, just like Esau, that he is willing to even throw his mother under the bus. Because Rebecca says, if you're cursed, let the curse fall on me. And he's like, boom, yes, there we go. That's right. And, so he's not even willing to take the curse himself. He's like, he doesn't do anything until his mom says, I'll take the curse for you. Yes, Mom, there you go. He's all about himself, right? He's willing to sacrifice everything to get what he wants. Even his own mom. So, to paint him as like a sissy kind of guy, no, he's a conniver, he's a cheat, but he wants to take over the family. He wants to be in charge. That's why he's like, hey, I'll give you the suit for your birthright. He's like, I'll take over the family, and all you have to do is, I'll give you the suit, but you have to let me take over the family. Boom. And then he's like, oh, I need to get the blessing too. And he goes along with his mom's suggestion, like, you should get the blessing. Yeah, you're right, I should get the blessing. So how do I do that? And Rebecca knows how to do it. And he's going along with, oh, yeah, that's good, Mom, that's good, Mom. But he's like, but what if I get caught? He's going to curse me instead. And that's not a good deal. I see Jacob as like a kind of a dirty businessman. That's what he is. He's a conniver. He's willing to sell his own mom in business. He doesn't care. He's willing to throw her under the bus so that he can get ahead. He's like a CEO in training here, and he's like, man, I don't care I don't care what throats I cut. I'm taking over. So what? You're so hungry, guess what? You have to sell me the birthright. Why did he go right to that? Because he wants the leadership of the family. So yeah, Jacob and Esau, both sinners. The story of Esau selling his birthright here and it paints them perfectly, both of them. It's encapsulate their character and who they are in just a little short story here. And it's really a precursor to what's going to come. It's foreshadowing what we see later on too. And what we see of these men, they don't really change. Jacob is always about himself for the most part. And even later on, even when he's an old man, he's still Jacob. Still the conniver. Still the cheat. Even though he gets cheated himself. Doesn't learn really. Not until the very end, I think. And so we'll see that in the stories coming up.